NBC News is taking a deeper look at that critical group of voters in a first-of-its-kind poll of Gen Z voters aged 18 to 29. NBC Stay Tuned correspondent Marquise Francis has more on what's motivating them and what it could mean for November.
Right now, Gen Z voters are supporting Vice President Kamala Harris in her bid for the White House.
It is locked in. I am voting for Kamala Harris.
Donald Trump, I think, would be, if not close to the end of our democracy, if he is elected president again.
According to a new NBC News Stay Tuned Gen Z poll, 50% of registered Gen Z voters support Harris, in comparison to 34% who support Trump.
I trust her.
Many young voters we spoke to said the vice president stepping into the race changed their feelings about the election.
I think ever since Kamala stepped up to the plate, I've seen like a whole new energy.
At the start of the election, I was really worried. With Kamala, I'm kind of excited. It's something new. She's young.
Age, something young voters say matters, with 73% supporting setting a maximum age limit for candidates to be eligible to run for president.
I think it should be across the board. I think when it comes to Congress, they also need age limits. We have several people on both sides of the aisle who I think belong in a nursing home at this point.
A candidate that is almost 80 years old has no idea what it's like to be in my shoes.
And the number one issue they say they care about right now?
The economy. I hate to say it, but I am living paycheck to paycheck.
I still have to work a second job to pay my rent.
Young voters put inflation and cost of living as their most important issue, followed by threats to democracy and abortion. The youngest generation of voters ready to make their voices heard this election.
My vote matters 100%. I'm excited to vote, and I don't think this election could be any more important.
Marquise Francis joins me now for more on our Gen Z poll. Also with me, NBC senior political editor Mark Murray and NBC News chief political analyst Chuck Todd here on set. Marquise, let me start with you. Obviously, we showed the poll numbers, but you actually talked to some of these voters. What was your big takeaway here?
Yeah, thank you for having me. As mentioned in the package, so many voters told me they're energized about this race, but they also said that they are also nervous and a little scared about what's to come. As we noted, about 50% of respondents said they would support and vote for Kamala Harris, but also 34% said they would vote for Trump. And I also want to add the fact that 7 in 10 respondents said they believe the U.S. is ready for a female president, which pretty much pales into comparison and contrast to a lot of the chatter we heard right when President Biden dropped out of the race. And so many people saying, is the U.S. actually ready for a female president? Gen Z is saying they are. And as we also noted in the package, age is a big concern. And so Vice President Harris right now is 59. She has a birthday next month, and so she will be 60, compared to former President Trump, who is currently 78. And 73% of our respondents said they actually support setting an age limit, and they believe it should be actually lower than 70. And if former President Trump were to win this election, he would be 82, older than Biden at the end of that first term, at that next term.
It's just fascinating, Marquise. And just very quickly, obviously, a tragic day as we track another school shooting, this time out of Georgia. I know that the poll asked Gen Z voters about the issue of gun violence. How does it rank in comparison to the other issues?
Yeah, well, in total, about 85% of Gen Z respondents said they are either very concerned or somewhat concerned about gun violence. And as you mentioned, we saw what happened today in Georgia. I looked up a statistic in every town for gun safety, said there's been more than 100 incidents of shootings on school grounds this year alone. And as you mentioned also in Georgia, this is less than a month in school. But it also pales into comparison to how Gen Z voters feel about other concerns in terms of the number one issue being inflation and the cost of living. 1 in 3 respondents said that is their top concern. I actually spoke to a 22-year-old in Arizona who's in flight school. And he actually mentioned that he has to pick up 2 to 3 additional jobs just to get by. He said the cost of gas is going up. You're not able to get as much with groceries. And so these are real concerns. And depending on what Gen Z voters think and who the right candidate can kind of make things better, that's who they're voting for.
Marquise, great reporting. Thank you for breaking that all down. Really appreciate it. We're going to break it down even further now with Chuck and Mark. Mark, let me start with you. What do you make of these Gen Z numbers? How significant? What are the big takeaways here?
Well, looking at the horse race overall, Kristen, obviously a 16-point advantage for Kamala Harris over Donald Trump is better than what we ended up seeing from a lot of national polling when Joe Biden was leading the Democratic ticket. But it's not yet at the 2020 levels, or certainly even what Barack Obama was able to get in 2008 and 2012. And so when I look at those young voter numbers, as well as Latinos and all the other demographic groups, Harris is in a better place than Biden was, but she's not out of the woods politically yet and still has some improvement to do.
Yeah, Chuck, that last point that Mark makes seems to be the ongoing challenge for Vice President Harris. Yes, she's doing better than Biden, but she's still not at those rates that she would need to be at in order to walk away with this. And that's why this is so close.
Well, the spread matters in some ways less than the percentage of voters that are under the age of 35 that show up. All right. And it's just an easy test, right? If Gen Z shows up in numbers that are equal to voters over 65, Harris is going to win. Hard stop. That's what we saw with Obama. That's what we saw with Biden. If Gen Z underperforms with the other three generations, millennials, boomers, and older voters, then you start. And to me, that's her challenge. But this is where you just look at the 2022 midterms and 2018 midterms, but particularly 2022, younger women are fired up to vote. And it all has to do with Dobbs.
Yeah, okay, so break that down, Mark, because here you see economy is their top issue, young voters' top issue. It's all voters' top issue, or by a larger margin. But Chuck's right, the issue of reproductive rights, the issue of abortion, Roe v. Wade being overturned, we have seen it being a motivating factor and a change maker since the midterms.
Yeah, and getting at that motivating factor, Kristen, I think it's important to note this poll, like a lot of other ones, what's the most important issue? And always the economy and the cost of living pops is number one. What is a little bit different about this poll is that the threats to democracy was a little bit less than we've seen in our national polling. And also immigration, well down from what we often end up seeing over overall national polls. But when we talk about the issue of abortion, one way our national poll, outside of this poll, often does it is there a single issue that you would vote for regardless? And that single issue voter, that's when abortion really does start to pop. And so just asking is like, what's the most important issue for the election doesn't quite get at the motivating factor.
Yeah, I think that whole democracy using that, I think it's a terrible construction because I think that is an eye of the beholder. Right? It's a bit subjective. Some people say threats to democracy and see the Dobbs decision. Other people say threats to democracy and see January 6th. Other people say threats to democracy and see going after Donald Trump in the trials. Right? So I think that's a very misleading poll result across the board. Everybody's been doing it.
Yeah, right.
Been trying to create this umbrella.
Right.
And I really think it's led people to some misleading results.
Chuck, going back to the point you make, though, about turnout, what are you seeing when you look at the enthusiasm numbers?
Well, look, what you see is the enthusiasm numbers have been there for Trump, and now now Harris has got it dead even. And I think a dead even race, then you start to look at mechanics of the campaign. And this is where the mechanics of the Harris campaign look to me a lot more reliable than what the Trump campaign is doing. Look, take Gen Z. They're both targeting specific sort of sub-demographic groups within Gen Z. Obviously, Harris is going after women, young women. Well, Trump's going after the gamers, right? The young men on this. But they are not frequent voters. Many of them are not even registered. And so this has been they're relying, and I think turning this operation over to these turning point folks who have no track record for actually doing elections. They have a track record for rhetoric on the internet, but they don't really have a track record of actually door knocking. He has outsourced a lot of his get out the vote. So if you have equal enthusiasm, you'd rather have the ones that know where these voters live than the ones who are relying on outside groups to do it.
I want to read a little bit of Chuck's column from this week, have you both chew on it a little bit. You write, Chuck, that whoever swing voters see as the most incumbent-like will lose this race, effectively. What do you mean? And it's so fascinating to think about it because Harris is in office, and yet Trump's the only one who's been president.
Look, it's just look at every election we've had in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Okay, we've since 2005. We believe the country's been headed in the wrong direction. So every opportunity voters have been giving to basically change directions in Washington one way or the other, they've chosen that. We've had multiple times the Senate's changed hands, multiple times the House has changed hands, multiple times the White House has changed hands. You know what? How often that happened in the 20th century? Once.
Yeah.
The House changed hands once in 50 years. Right. Okay. Then a little bit before then, but the last 40 years, I mean, we had stability upon stability. We only had one-term president who was preceded by another party and succeeded by another party. This time, we're doing it all over the place. So, no, you cannot be seen as the incumbent. And this is why she's basically trying to paint it. Trump as the leader of this political era. Yeah. Therefore, he is, the incumbent of the era. Yeah. And obviously, hey, you're part of this administration. And I do think it is eye of the beholder. If you care about policies and you don't like some of the Biden policies, then then Trump might have a shot at your vote. Yeah. But if you're tired of the chaos, that's a different type of incumbent or change election.
Mark, so much makes this moment unprecedented, and this is yet another dynamic.
Well, and even on the policy that Chuck was talking about, you end up looking at polling where Harris right now is doing better on the economy and immigration than Joe Biden ever was.
Still losing.
Yeah, still losing, but better.
Right.
And, when you actually look and say, well, I'm really upset about the Joe Biden presidency or the Biden-Harris on the economy and on immigration, that all of a sudden when Harris is doing better than Joe Biden ever was, you see how she is not being viewed as an incumbent, even on an issue like immigration, where she did kind of have a little bit of a role in the administration.
Right, and as Chuck is saying, the Trump folks are doing everything they can to say, no, she is the incumbent. We obviously have a debate coming up in less than a week. Mark, we saw the significance of debates in the debate between Biden and Trump. What are you watching for?
I'm looking forward to seeing if this honeymoon period, and it's important to note that this month plus has been a honeymoon for Harris, for the Democratic Party. And I haven't been in a presidential, covering elections like this, where one candidate and one party's had 4, 5, 6 weeks of nothing but really good news or no adversities. As we all know, even with successful candidates, there is adversity. Barack Obama faced it. Donald Trump, of course, in 2016. And at some point, there is actually going to be her time in the ringer. I don't know if that's going to be the debate or even afterwards, but there's going to be some type of transition.
Keep this in mind. Donald Trump has only succeeded in one one-on-one debate ever, and it was because his opponent was barely ambulatory. I'm sorry. That's why, if you had just listened to Trump without hearing Biden, you wouldn't have said Trump had a very good debate. He was sort of meandering. He was all over the place. He just wasn't as meandering and all over the place. It's all about, right? Don't judge me by the almighty, judge me by the alternative. Right. I think this debate, Trump has more to lose than Kamala. If Kamala flops, voters are probably going to be willing to see a second. Let's see how you do the second time. Yeah. Trump's done it so many times. He doesn't have the same margin for error with voters. I think voters know his shtick, and if the shtick is as bad as they fear, that's a bad sign for him.
Okay, well, a lot to watch. Thank you for breaking all of that down. Mark and Chuck, great to see you both.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.